good evening. This is your man's, the man about town, Petty Murphy, reporting to you live from the back of the classroom with Alcata News Network. What is that? Wait a minute. Stay tuned. Breaking news.
Oh, that the Disney movie Pocahontas is actually based on a real-life person that once lived that was also known as Pocahontas? However, the real-life story of Pocahontas was not as beautiful as depicted in the Disney movie. The real life of Pocahontas was actually very dark. In case you don't know the true story of Pocahontas, I'm going to share it with you. Her real birth name was actually Matoaka. However, her nickname was in fact Pocahontas, which meant the playful one. And of course, she was a Native American girl from the Powhatan tribe. In fact, she was just a little girl from the age of 10 or 12. And this is where the dark aspect of her life story comes into play. When she was around 10 or 12, that's when the English settlers began to arrive to the region of her people. In the movie, she is depicted as a young woman, and then here comes John Smith, a young white man. But the reality was that she was just a little girl. And John Smith was a full-blown grown man, possibly in his 30s or 40s. And in the Disney movie, two people come together and fall in love. And they bring two peoples together. But in the real life, John Smith actually kidnapped Pocahontas as a little girl because he wanted to use Pocahontas to manipulate that tribe, because Pocahontas was actually the daughter of the chief of that tribe. And so John Smith kidnapped her. And once he used her for ransom and also to manipulate the chief, then he took her to England, where he left her there to become a servant and get impregnated as a little girl. And she lived the rest of her life as a servant in England, where she eventually passed away due to pneumonia. And this is a true story of what today you know as Pocahontas. The truth is that there was never ever falling in love and a people coming together. The real life story of Pocahontas was a little girl that got kidnapped, held for ransom, got taken to another continent, became a servant, and passed away at the very young age of 20. And I believe it's very important to share the real story of Pocahontas, because not only Disney and Hollywood have a very bad habit of romanticizing what really happened to Native Americans, but also white historians have the tendency to romanticize invading a people, raping a people, the genocide of a people, the ethnic cleansing of a people, and the colonization of a people. They make it seem like white people arrived to the Americas and married Native Americans, created peace with Native Americans. But the reality is that when Europeans arrived to the Americas, they pretended to be the friends of Native Americans. The gifts that the Europeans brought to the Native Americans were contaminated with diseases and illnesses that Native Americans had no immunity for. So it was the gifts of the white man to the Native Americans that actually wiped a very large percentage of the Native American population. You see, what a lot of Hollywood movies written and directed by the white man, they make it seem like these brave soldiers came from Europe and began to fight and conquer. But the reality is that they arrived. And when they realized that they couldn't defeat a lot of the tribes in the Americas, they instead pretended to be their friends and offered Native Americans gifts that had diseases. And slowly but surely, the population of Native Americans began to decrease lower and lower. And when it was low enough, then they began to attack. Believe it or not, some of the first Europeans that arrived to the Americas actually kept journals with them. Columbus was one of those people. And in full detail, they described what they saw when they first arrived to the Americas. And if you do some research and look for some of these journals and you read what the first Europeans saw when they got here, you will realize and learn that a lot of the history books that you read are so opposite of what the journals written by the first Europeans that arrived described when they first got here and what they saw. See, history books in public schools describe Native Americans as savages, uncivilized. They had nothing going for themselves. But the journals of the first Europeans described arriving and being left in awe at the beautiful civilizations that the Native Americans had built. Native Americans had universities, advanced mathematics, science. They had underground plumbing already going on, advanced architecture, agriculture, and believe it or not, indigenous people were already performing surgeries when the first Europeans arrived here. One of the things that is described in the Journal of Cortez is that he learned that the native people generally bathed twice a day. Meanwhile, the first Europeans that arrived would go on for a whole week and not bathe. In fact, it is described that when the first Europeans arrived to the Americas, one of the first things that the natives discovered about them is that they really stunk because their hygiene was very, very poor. And one of the first things that the natives did was go clean them because they stunk. A lot of people always ask me, Ricardo, what books do you read? And I'm going to recommend one book to you. I myself have written a book, but it's a novel. It's called Los Indios. I will link it in the comment section. However, I'm also going to recommend, if you ever get the time, read that book. Because the history books that are found in schools were written to demonize Native Americans, depict them as savages, cannibals, in order for white people to be able to justify oppressing a people. Because if there's something to learn about white people, is that they always demonize a people that they oppress. In other words, we first have to make them look like people who deserve to be mistreated and to be seen as subhumans. Because if we could accomplish to show the world that these people are no good, then we could get away with oppressing them and doing what we want with them. This is something that white people still do today with their mass media. They use the media to demonize Black American people, Hispanics, so that every time they systemically oppress these people, it's kind of like, well, I mean, yeah, we're oppressing these people, but I mean, look at them. And that's why it's important for white people to control the narrative. Because as long as white people control the narrative, they're going to get away with committing all the crimes that they do.
Okay. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Exactly. I mean, never mind the question of like how you can discover a place where the inhabitants are watching you arrive from the shore. Yeah, they weren't wearing pants. Is that what somebody said? I like that. So anyway, there were actually many other mariners before Columbus that discovered America as well. Decades earlier, even eons earlier, there were so many people that were coming across these islands and this continent. But it's only been in the last century that evidence has surfaced and continually grown to indicate that many of these pre-Columbian explorers might have come from Africa. So the first scientist to promote this possibility was Leo Wiener. Born in Russia, Wiener immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century on his way to British Honduras, where he planned to open a vegetarian commune. Well, when that turned out not to be the dream job he expected, he moved back to the United States and he became a professor at Harvard University, as one does. But in his time in Mesoamerica, he started noticing things. There are lots of things that led him to encounter certain discoveries that made him consider that possibly if the origins of American civilization might actually be in Africa. So many linguistic and botanical and other similarities that between 1920 and 1922, he published an extensive 3-volume piece. Columbus himself was aware that African mariners had preceded him. In his diary of his second voyage, Columbus tells of how the natives of Hispaniola actually had given him gold-tipped metal spearheads that they said were brought by black-skinned people who had come in large boats from the south and southeast. Coincidence? I think not. No.
Living a dream.
We're the first here, but you're still curious about hidden histories, then buckle up for a revelation. Let's dive into the untold history of Black American Indians. Before the Siberian migrants crossed the Bering Strait, black people were already thriving here. Yes, you heard that right. Early civilizations, older than many African ones, left traces from South America to the southwest US. The Olmec heads in Mexico, definite African features. Fast forward to the Dawes Act of 1887. Non-natives paid $5 to be recorded as Native American, erasing the true indigenous black people from history. Their identity was changed from Indian to Negro to colored and finally African American. Why erase them? Colonizers needed the land, and rewriting history made it easier. But the truth, black American Indians were the original stewards. It's time we revisit history with fresh eyes. Like, share and subscribe for more hidden truths. If you think...
Is this you discussing Indian blood? We're going to judge people by whether they have Indian blood, whether they're qualified to run a gaming casino or not?
That probably is me, absolutely. Because I'll tell you what, if you look at some of the reservations that you've approved, you, sir, in your great wisdom have approved, I will tell you right now, they don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like to Indians. Now, maybe we say politically correct or not politically correct. They don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians. And a lot of people are laughing at it, and you're telling how tough it is, how rough it is to get approved. Well, you go up to Connecticut, and you look. Now, they don't look like Indians to me, sir.
Thank God that's not the test of whether or not people have rights in this country or not, whether or not they pass your look test.
Depends whether, yeah.
Is this you?
I am a Mashantucket Pequot tribal member. I became federally recognized in 1993. Previous to that, I was always known to be an Afro-American. I was told as I was younger that we have native blood, if you will, and relatives of the Narragansett and the Pequots. I remember as I was growing up, the question was asked a lot if I'm mulatto because of my light skin, and I'm like, no, there are no Caucasians in my family as I know of. But it came clear to me when I was told more of my native side. So that explained to me why the skin is so light. I am a...
Yep. So yeah, you see what it is. I'm not even gonna get too heavy into this, but I'll say this much. The truth is out there if you want it, and they're not even hiding. It's not even like it's hiding. It's hidden, and it's hidden in plain sight. But you can go somewhere as simple as librarycongress.gov. Because if you listen to what Ricardo said in the beginning about people like Cortez or Columbus and individuals, or Benjamin Franklin, all of them kept journals and diaries. These publications are published, and you can find them for free on librarycongress.gov. The biggest obstacle you're going to have is the same one I had, the indoctrination. You're going to have to unlearn and then be willing to do your own due diligence, your own research from the documents that were left by the individuals that they told or taught us his story in history class, instead of telling us the truth and the facts. But the facts are there. You just have to be willing to do your own due diligence and go find them. And then once you do, be willing to accept what it is that you find on that journey. And then once you do, the narrative completely changes. So again, right? Understand and know who you are and what you're actually capable of. And then you'll understand why the things happen in society the way that they do. Your greatest asset in life is you. And when you let other people control your thoughts, your thinking, and your actions, they completely control you, and you are a slave. When you sit back complaining about oppressors and everything else, the only thing that is oppressing us as a collective is our lack of knowledge and our lack of willingness to go find that knowledge when it's sitting there just waiting to be taken. But yeah, I'm gonna get out of here, man. Y'all enjoy your holiday, or should I say your time off, because this really is not a holiday. Because if you actually knew or paid attention to what's really going on, right? I always say, right, we like to cut off our own noses to spot our face. We like to indulge in and support things that go against our betterment and our own safety and security. Because again, you know, the not African Americans or any other Afro, whatever they want to put it when they come here in the diaspora, has ties, lineage to this land as we do, even though they all claim they built this country as immigrants, even though they didn't get here till after 1965. But for those of us whose lineages was here and have been here, I'm talking to you. But yeah, y'all be safe out there. Enjoy your time off. Love your families. Love each other. Realize, realize, realize. Transparency forces accountability. And y'all keep your eyes to the stars. Y'all keep that head on swivel.